Welcome back, Goblins, to another Apoptosis 808 video. I'm here with my Impat, and today we are going to be talking about Infernals once again, but this time we're going to be talking about a build guide for Vanguard specifically. I think there might be some play that you could do maybe versus Celestial and Infernals, but this build specifically seems to work very well versus Vanguard if they're not prepared for it, and that is, of course, the 2-base Spriggan Rush. So before we get into the actual build itself, we've seen this used by a laser just this past week in some of the tournaments that have been going on. It seems to work very well. It is a build that can get hard countered by like Hornets if they scout it, if they're really diligent with it. But honestly, a lot of people aren't really scouting in Stormgate right now. They don't really know the timings of it, so there's probably a really good opportunity right now to just kind of collect some free MMR with this if you'd like. It's a pretty simple build to follow. It's not too complicated. And it's sort of reminiscent, if you're a StarCraft 2 player, to like a 2-base Muta build that Zerg would do, but a little bit of variance from it. And then the way that you can play afterwards is entirely up to you and how much damage you're able to do. So let's go ahead and start in the video here. This is just an empty custom game. I just wanted to showcase the build itself. I have done this on the ladder, and obviously, you know, when you're playing against an opponent, you're going to be making mistakes. They're going to be forcing some pressure. So if you're not able to get like a perfect timing, and even I don't do this build perfectly in this custom game, but I just wanted to show sort of the gist of it. So this is going to be a Vault Expand build. You're going to completely ignore Therium in the early game until you're able to sort of get your natural up and running and start creeping the map. Once you hit that 10 out of 12 workers on your Luminite mine, that's when you're going to start going into Therium. And then after that, it's really just hitting these Therium timings that you're looking for. I think obviously you can do this on pretty much any map. There are some maps that I think are a bit more favored than others. Particularly ones that have a lot of airspace that's easy to get around your opponent and not a huge rush distance. So, you know, potentially Lost Hope can be a really good one if you get lucky with the spawns, but it really just depends. So again, it's just a simple vault into expand opener, and then we did our meat farm at the Vision Camp. I've been doing this a lot more lately. I've seen a laser do this all the time. He always puts his first meat farm at whatever the Vision Camp closest to him is. And that not only makes the Vision Camp a lot easier to farm, but it also means that it's going to be more difficult for your opponent to contest it with just like one fiend or whatever, right? Like one unit. They actually have to commit a little bit more to it. So we're at that 10 out of 12 on the Luminite mine. You can see now we start to go into Therium here, and we're dragging a worker down as this camp is getting destroyed. And we start to have enough money to actually expand. So again, there's not a ton that we need to do in the early game other than just try to take the creeps on our side of the map. Even though this is an empty custom, obviously I could have gone around and I'm going to turn the music back on. I totally forgot that I had that off. We could have gone around and farmed every camp on the map if we really wanted to, but I wanted to make it a little bit more fair and what you guys might see in your games. At this point, I think we could have gone for another Iron Vault here. We're banking up quite a lot of Luminite, so just to be safe, I would probably drop an Iron Vault here, but this thing that you want to specifically not do is go for Conclave. You really don't want to spend any Therium if it's possible. You want to bank up all that Therium so that you can spend that all on Spriggans and you can spend it all on upgrading, because it does require a good amount of Therium to get you all the way to Spriggans. You have to tech up to tier 2, you got to make your Twilights, and then you got to make your Shadow Cleft, and then you can finally make your Spriggans. Sounds like it takes a long time, but if you just focus your Therium on doing that, it's not actually too bad. So we're just actually going to take these 3 camps here. Not going to go for any more at this point. We're going to make some extra units here and there just as we need to. You want to try to make as few units as possible if you can. And just sort of, again, save up as much money as you can for that transition. You're looking to have, at the end of this, about 800 Luminite. And that would be 400 Therium. That would be like a perfect version of this build, where you're able to get 2 Twilight Spires with 2 charges each, And then you are able to get a Hellspawn Resurgence in there as well. So that would get you 7 Spriggans immediately. I think we are able to hit that in this game. We're going to stop at 7 Ethereum here. I think you could go up to 10 if you really wanted to commit to this. But I think 7 is totally fine if you want to do it as an initial pressure or an initial just attack timing, and then decide what you want to do. Do you want to keep going into Spriggans? Do you want to transition into, Conclave tech? Do you want to go into Magmadons, Weavers, whatever it is you feel like doing, just depending on maybe how your opponent's playing. We're spending all of our imp charges, and it's important here, I didn't talk about this, but it's important actually to make 2 Twilight Spires as soon as possible. So you get T2, and then you, if you only have money to make 1 Twilight Spire, just make sure that you make the 2nd Twilight Spire as soon as you can. It's important because you want to bank up charges, and you want these each to hit 2 charges if possible. Shadow Cleft goes down, and now is when we're going to start kind of cutting. If it's, if you're staying on top of your imp charges, you can probably keep making those without too much of an issue. But you're basically looking for like half saturation at your natural and relatively full saturation in your main. As you can see, we've only taken these 3 camps. So we are now moving out. We're going to try to do the Luminite camp. We could have done this much earlier, honestly, if we wanted to. Especially with Iron Vault, it's pretty easy to take this camp. So we just decided, oh yeah, you're more than likely going to be able to do it in your game. And you can see we're approaching that moment here. And right before the Shadow Cleft finishes, I do want to point out a few things here. So because we went Iron Vault and we've been splitting brutes and we've been creeping the map and doing all sorts of stuff, we do actually have 64 Animus. So that means we will have enough for a Hellspawn Resurgence. One of the things I noticed is if you open this with like a single Conclave and you just try to like really sweaty creep the map with like Gaunts, it is more efficient. You're not going to lose as many units, but you're actually kind of happy losing brutes in this build because it gets you that Animus. You can actually get to this without having enough for Hellspawn Resurgence, and that feels really bad. Okay. So now at this point, it's very simple. You're just going to start making Spriggans. At this time, I think I'm like trying to finish out this Luminite camp. And as that finishes up, we're able to make a few more. We do Hellspawn Resurgence here. And I think that gets us up to, I think we get up to 8 here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That was a really terrible spot to pause. Or it might just be 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we get 7. But as you can see, we're very close to being able to make an 8th one. So that's not too bad at 5 minutes, 20 seconds, 30 seconds in the game. Now at this point, I do think you have a few options. If you haven't seen your opponent, if you don't really know what their army composition is, I would be a bit careful with these Spriggans when you go across the map. They're very, very good at killing buildings. They're okay at killing workers. They're not incredible. But they will get the job done. One of the things that's really nice to do is if they're kind of caught off guard and unprepared, you can drop a Nightfall Infestation in their worker line and then try to start killing their workers. And spawning fiends. You can just try to dive their main base. Don't be afraid to attack the command post. Don't be afraid to attack their tech buildings. I think as this build sort of evolves and develops, sniping their like biokinetics labs or maybe their mech bays, things like that, are going to be way more important than necessarily getting like their bases. But you're looking for the low-hanging fruit. You just want as much damage done to their buildings as possible. And then from there, you can determine what you need to do. If they're building a hangar bay, like it's not done yet, and you catch them off guard with these Spriggans, you can actually just kind of win the game from that point. Exos are incredible units, but they're not very good, honestly, versus Spriggans. Spriggans kind of outdamage them pretty hard because of that Saliva Slow debuff that they do. So in low numbers, Exos are not honestly that fantastic. You can just kind of keep staying on top of that, expand back at home, keep making more Spriggans, keep spending your Hellspawn Resurgence to make more. Let's say you get there and they do have a hangar done, but there's only a couple of Hornets maybe. You can try and micro against it. Hornets are incredibly good versus Spriggans. At that point, I would probably just use them and keep them alive for as long as possible, but don't intend on winning the game from just the Spriggans alone. I would definitely look to expand, go into more conclave tech, get weavers. You're looking for, the gaunt upgrades, those sorts of things. These Spriggans can buy you quite a lot of time, but the second you lose them all, your opponent is just going to walk across the map and try to kill you because he knows that this took a lot of investment from you. Smart players might just try to do that anyways, but because we're on tier 2, we also have access to the Super Shroud Stone. Iron Vault is a very tanky, double vault rather is a very tanky opener to go, so you can make lots of brutes. And then if they only have lancers and things like that, your Spriggans trade extremely well. Obviously, they trade incredibly well because the lancers can't hit them. But what I mean to say is they do a bunch of damage to lancers, so you can actually defend pretty well with Spriggans, where mutas in StarCraft 2 weren't necessarily fantastic at it. Yeah, that is the basics of the build. This is your first 5.5 minutes, as precisely as I could get it in this custom game. Again, just some key notes that you're looking for. Go for an Iron Vault into expand, and then drop that second vault once you're floating enough money for it. After you hit 10 out of 12 workers on your Luminite mine, you're going to want to just start mining Therium until you have at least 7 workers on there. You're looking to expand right around the time that you kill that first camp. That should give you enough money to get that expansion going. And then from that point, you're just trying to spend your money on brutes and imps, making sure to prioritize making imps because hitting these timings is really important. And then, obviously, you're looking to get to T2 with your first 100 Therium. With your next 100, you're wanting to make the double Twilight Spire. And then you're going to want to drop the Shadow Cleft. And at that point, when you drop the Shadow Cleft, you don't really want to spend money on brutes anymore. You might even want to hold some imps so that you can get all of these Spriggans out, go across the map. And then you can play it however you want to. Really, the game's in your hand at that point. I think a lot of Vanguard players are not really used to playing versus Spriggans right now. So I think this build, again, will just kind of get you some free wins out of the blue. And even if they are prepared for it, I do still think that there is some good play with it. This can get hard countered, though. So again, I want to warn you guys of that. If they scout it very early, and if they react by immediately putting down a hangar and starting to make hornets, you're probably going to be in a really rough situation. So it might be pertinent for you to run some fiends into their base and see if they have like a hangar bay. If you scout that they do, it might actually even be smart to hold off on making Spriggans immediately. Maybe even cancel one or both of the Twilight Spires if you can, and just expand out and try and go for, again, that standard like Conclave, Weaver, Hellborn sort of styles that we've been seeing a lot more lately. Anyways, enjoy the build, guys. I hope this was very helpful for you. I've been having a ton of fun playing Spriggans. So go out there, bop some Vanguard players. Go bop some Celestia players, too, while you're at it. And, play the really weird IVI that we have going for us right now. But make sure, if you like this video, guys, to check out my other videos. If you like those videos, be sure to subscribe to the channel. And let me know down below how you like this build. Until the next time, see you later.